You're
I
in
suck
the
at
Army,
that.
so it's all good.
I did too.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Leaders Lead. I'm Zach Husted. I am super thrilled today to not only have a couple distinguished guests with me, but there is so much fun that is about to happen on this podcast. You're not going to be able to contain it. Not only do we have the Christiansen brothers that are going to get introduced here in just a second, but they're also both Army brats, and I mean Army guys, and they're from Iowa. And so not only do we have like this trifecta of military, we've never had a total of 3 speakers on Leaders Lead before, but you were overran with the awesome from Iowa on this podcast. So get ready, buckle up, because welcome to Iowa on this podcast. So I'm going to turn it over first. I'm going to go with Tyler. Tyler, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, that's where we
It's
met.
been a little time since what? Salt Lake City? Yeah. It's been a minute since we've done that, and I'm glad we got the opportunity. It's
Yeah.
this is gonna be interesting.
Do you know how I knew we were going to be
what we're gonna
friends?
do, so and where we're gonna go
Because of these socks.
because we're both from Iowa State. Hey, what did you text? Hey, what did you text earlier about?
Yeah, I said,
Sorry,
hey guys, thanks for the grace and let
Mahomes?
me fumble a
What
little
was it?
bit, like Patrick Mahomes. I said because Brock Purdy wouldn't do that. And when we met, I just share this. Like, we met in Salt Lake City
Yeah.
on Veterans Day, right? And Iowa State was playing that day.
Yeah, it was.
In a bowl game. And the bowl game was on, and I told him I was from Iowa, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, dude, I like Iowa State, and he's like, okay, who told you to say that? You're totally screwing with me. And
No. Yeah. Yep, you're right.
and
I
I'm
thought I
like,
saw
dude,
your
I'm like,
socks
I'm a
first,
huge
you're
Iowa
right.
State
And
fan.
then
And he's
you
like, no,
showed
you're
me the
not. And I'm
socks.
like, I lift up my pant leg, and I literally had these socks on. And he's like, you are a Cyclone. And I'm like, yes. And so in the spirit of that, I had to go find the socks to show it on this podcast, symbolically to say I knew we were meant to be friends, because I had that was like the moment we went from like,
Nice.
do we like each other, to like, oh man, let's bro hug it out. Exactly.
Did we just become best friends?
Absolutely.
So Tyler,
Yep.
thanks for joining. Why don't you just give us a quick little introduction of who you are?
Yeah. Yeah, so I originally started National Guard, Army, Infantry, did that, and then while I was getting my college degree in exercise science, ended up doing strength and conditioning. Worked at Iowa State, Illinois State. Then I did a hiatus and did contracting in Iraq. Came back from that, and it's funny, I got hired by the Colorado Rockies to be a strength and conditioning coach for them. I had little to no experience at that time. And it's funny, I know the guy that hired me, and then like I still talk to him today. And I was like, dude, why the hell did you hire me? And he's like, dude, you came from effing Iraq. Like, I can teach you the skills, but that's cool as shit. Like, he's like, and I know the guys aren't gonna run over you, It's like, okay, fair. But did Colorado Rockies. Then in the off season, I was intended to go to the AAA team in Colorado Springs. So I moved to Colorado Springs, but in the off season, I needed something to do. So I took an internship at this place called the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's the main certifying body of strength and conditioning coaches. So think of Iowa State. Their strength staff is
Okay.
certified through NSCA. And then or the 49ers, their strength coach is certified by the NSCA. So it's the main certifying body for the industry. So I did an internship there, but I just so happened to land at the right time, right as they're starting this new thing called tactical strength and conditioning. So I went there, and then because of my military background, because of this, they kind of looped me into that foundational program. And then I ended up turning down the AAA job with the Colorado Springs Sky Sox. That's what they're called. The Sky Sox team. I ended up turning that down and decided I'm going to go this tactical strength and conditioning route, which sounds cool, right? But the jobs didn't exist yet. And so I ended up being a exercise physiologist at the Army Physical Fitness Research
That sounds pretty
Institute at
intense.
Leavenworth. They're annexed at Leavenworth. So I did no, you do a research protocol. Like this is when I found out that my ADHD life, like my head, like I like a lot of little things like moving. So I was doing the exercise protocol for this research institute, and I just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it got really mundane that I was done with it. Like I just like I was done. But luckily, the NSCA called back again and is like, hey, we have a coordinator program. We're starting to grow this. Do you want to go? And I said, yep. So I went back to Colorado. So I was out there for a few years, like being the coordinator of that program when it's still in its infancy. Then I got an offer to go to Washington, D.C. to work for a Tier 1 organization. This Tier 1 organization is kind of the things that doesn't have a name. And it's the kind of interview you do where you just meet in a gymnasium somewhere, an empty gymnasium, and you do your interview process. There's a funny story there that maybe we'll get into later, but I don't want to extend this too far. But we do this interview process, and I ended up getting hired. Ended up going out there, and then it's the kind of job where they're like, they give me a landmark and say, you'll work in a 30-mile radius of this. The landmark I moved right next to, that type of stuff. Ended up finding out about the organization, read into the program, that type of stuff. Did that for a few years. The city life, the cement jungle is not my lifestyle. I like more beach, mountains, that type of thing. So got an opportunity to move south to Destin, Florida, and work for 7th Group Special Forces. Let me back up real quick. When I was in Colorado Springs, I was working with 10th Group Special Forces, which will tie into Cory. So 7th Group Special Forces, and then in 2014, they had a big, massive layoff within contractors. It was felt across the board, like massive layoff. So I was hit with that and out of a job. Well, it just so happened the NSCA was hiring again for the management position. So I went and took over that position. When I went in there, ended up writing a book, a 360-page manual that the DOD ended up adopting as not the DOD, I'd say components of the Army ended up adopting as like their education doctrine. And once that happened, like this program that is expecting like a slow and steady incline, like went whoof. It just straight up and launched. But the thing is, I wasn't prepared for it. I was prepared for slow and steady, so like you had to play a lot of catch up with that. After that happened, the first GS-14 Human Performance Director position opened here in San Antonio, where I live now, and so I took that position, and we stood up the first Human Performance Support Group in the DoD. So it's been a stressful ride. I recently left that position. Now I work for a startup tech company out of Denver that measures your blood lactate. And so you know how people are like, hey, you underestimate the value of walk, zone 2 type stuff. This company measures your blood lactate and tells you specifically where your zone 2 is relative to you. Like when you jump on a treadmill and it's like your fat burning zone's here if you're 40 years old. Well, if you're, really big Becky, or if you're fit Karen running marathons and you're both 40, that zone's going to be significantly different. So we dial it in specifically to your personal, like where you're at. So, and that's where I'm working business development right now. Can't hear you. Put a marker down. Put a marker down. Damn it. You're on mute. You're on mute. That's why.
That was probably awesome because I said something and you didn't catch it. So that's why. When I went to go hit a marker, I hit mute. Yeah.
I caught that earlier.
I saw you do
Nope,
something,
that's
and I
why I hit
looked
the
at
wrong
you, and I'm
thing.
like,
Totally
"Do you
cool.
want me to
So,
expand on something?" Like, I don't know.
man, that's an awesome introduction. I totally appreciate it. But we got another guest here, Cory. Man, I, you know, I maybe I
Yeah.
should have went with you first. I mean, you're the bigger brother. I, y-
Yeah, I think he had a more in
hey, man,
detail introduction
Cory,
than I
thanks
will,
thanks
so
for
we'll
being
see.
here, and thanks
Stop.
for joining the podcast today. Um, can you introduce yourself and tell the community a little bit about you and what you have going on?
Yeah, first off, I want to say thanks for you and Pillar, the coffee company. Uh, you give back to the vets,
I
and that's
appreciate
what
that.
both of us are, so that's a big thing. My name is Cory Christiansen, and as we said, I grew up in Iowa, small town Iowa. I was a shy boy, a very, very quiet boy, and very clumsy. So nobody ever really thought I would ever add up to anything. But leaving home, I went to college, proved them right initially, where I didn't graduate college and figured out that college wasn't quite my thing. Uh, Looking past that, decided to try to go military. I tried initially in National Guard, got turned down, and then Army decided to accept me. Yeah, the turning
Because I
down
know where
we'll
you're at
talk
right
about a little
now, and
bit
like this
later.
doesn't like compute in my head.
It's because the
Yeah,
National Guard has higher standards than the Army.
yeah. It's all about waivers. It was something silly because I wrestled a lot back in high school and I had microscopic blood and protein in my urine. And for some reason, that disqualified me. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm at the best shape of my life, whatever. So I went to college, tried my best there. Didn't really try my best, probably partied a
You had
little too
fun.
much. But went from,
All right, all
I
right.
got one good story on his college days later. Yeah.
yeah, went from there and I decided Army. Like, hey, I couldn't do National Guard. I talked to an Army recruiter. He's like, oh, we've got waivers for that. I've actually had somebody with that similar incident. And he's like, just eat a banana before you go into do your urinalysis. So I ate a banana, no issues. I joined the military, and in 2001, I became part of the Army. I was went straight to the 82nd, was part of the 82nd Airborne, and I deployed with them in 2003. Super excited. That was my first combat experience.
Mm-hmm.
We got to find out what we truly are. Before that, you never really know. You assume, yeah, I'm going to be badass. I'm going to do all this. But until those bullets start flying, you find out who you really are. Luckily, in 2003, I also came under contact and was awarded the Bronze Star with Valor, which initially was a Silver Star that was downgraded to a Bronze Star for V, for because
Re- Real quick note on this, Corey. Don't mean to interrupt your
no,
story,
you're
but
good.
real quick note on this. Today, like I feel like they give out bronze, silver
Yeah,
stars because hey, good job, everybody got paid. Like, that type of stuff, like in a combat zone, so they're giving out bronze stars for that shit. This is earlier than that when like you had to do heroic shit to be able to get one of those stars.
Man,
So,
look at that. That's
just
a
for
proud little brother right
context
there.
to
Like
that story.
defending what it actually means. Like, that's awesome. Yep,
right.
I understand.
Well, and there is a difference. There is a difference between a Bronze Star, where officers get Bronze Stars for doing their
Hmm.
job in combat zone, and they're the top cover. They do their thing, whatever. But this was bullets were flying, so it became a valor issue, and that's why initially the battalion commander of another battalion that I was supporting put me in for a Silver Star, and it got downgraded because I was a specialist at the time. So they didn't feel like a specialist up in the 50 cal should get a Silver Star, so they downgraded it to a bronze with valor. Um, Going from there, I discovered a lot about myself. I discovered a lot about my peers and saw things that I liked, things that I didn't like as much. and I realized that I wanted to become part of a more elite group. So I decided at that point that I wanted to become a Green Beret. And around 2005 is when I finally pushed myself to go through selection and see if I had what it takes. Luckily, I got selected. I was able to pass the course. They picked me up, and I went to 10th Group, Special Forces Group, Colorado Springs. I did multiple deployments. We do shorter deployments than the regular Army. So regular Army, I did a 12-month deployment. And then as a Green Beret, we do more like 6 months. We do the same amount, if not more, missions in that short amount of time as a regular Army unit. So they condense them a little bit faster, make it so you can get back, get trained back up, and then head back out another 6 months after that. So I did about 3 or 4 deployments at that time and knew that my instructor time was coming up. As a Green Beret, at some point in your career, you've got to do your instructor time. So I was able to kind of guide my path when I heard about an opening down in the military freefall school. I loved my job as a freefall person on a team, and it was a way to get to the target, a way to get to your job, essentially. So I took the opportunity, put my name in for the military freefall school, and got picked up to go down there. I became an instructor, worked my way through the ranks, and eventually became an instructor of the instructors that came in. I was supposed to go back to 10th Group, was all excited to go back there, and then heard about a opportunity to keep
because
doing.
because at that time I was living back in Colorado. So we keep battling. Whenever I show up in Colorado, he deploys. When I leave, or then he gets back, then I leave, then he's there, then I show up again, and then he leaves. So this will tie into the end of the story, I hope. Corey will take it.
Guess I got to figure that one out. But anyways, I had a rigger friend that was in Tampa, Florida, SOCOM, Special Operations Command, and heard of a parachute demonstration team that jumps into NFL football games, like the big sporting events. They jump into air shows, they jump into ceremonies, and you name it, we jump into it. And they were looking for an NCOIC. And coming from the schoolhouse, I was something different than they had actually experienced before. So I had learned to fly different body positions and to really push my skills. And this was another way of honing my skills. So I talked to their team leader, and he said I'm a perfect fit, but I have family. And he was worried about family because we're gone every weekend being an issue. Luckily, I've been in Yuma, where for the past 4 years, we've been family oriented. We've had family nearby. We don't deploy. We don't do anything. So it's been very family oriented. So I was able to say, hey, I understand your feelings. And I moved into that position knowing that I was going to be gone on the weekends. It took a little bit away from family, but I was still there for sporting events and that kind of stuff. So went there, did my time. I got to jump into a lot of cool events, NFL games. As, hey, we were talking about the Chiefs earlier, the Chiefs and Broncos, where at the time I was a Bronco fan, but we couldn't say that because we're jumping into the Chiefs stadium.
Dude, that's so rad.
I was a Chief fan. It was very cool. High winds, a lot of interesting scenarios. I ended up with about 3,500 jumps, more times taking off in a plane than I do actually landing in a plane.
I've traveled a lot from my commercial career, and I did a decent amount for my military career, and I've never once jumped out of a perfectly good airplane. So I have the exact opposite experiencing you, but I totally want to jump out of an airplane. Hey, man, you guys are both just awesome dudes. And before we get going any further, I want to make sure that I don't forget to do this. On behalf of this great nation, on behalf of everyone that's going to listen to this thing, on behalf of the brotherhood that we have created among the three of us, and that I'm an honorary brother, I think, hopefully, of each of you two. I just want to say thanks for your service to this nation. Right. And, it's a delight to know you. You guys are absolutely amazing to be around. The energy and the playfulness and the banter of the two of you collectively, and I mean, people are seeing it right now in this energy. I'm honored to know you, and I'm thankful to have had the good Lord God to give me a chance to get to meet you. I'm thankful that Utah presented that opportunity, and that I actually wore Iowa State socks that day, because I don't think you would have actually believed me and thought I was a cool cat if I didn't. So
I seriously thought, like, I was like,
no,
who told it?
man.
Like, I seriously thought you were trying to mess with me, because we were actually Corey and I were sitting in the lobby, and we were heading to go watch the game. Like, that's why we were sitting there, and then you like brought that up, and I'm like,
I
and
laughed
then I
because
know,
he calls himself a true fan, but yet was
That's
not
what I'm
wearing
talking
any Iowa
about.
State paraphernalia. And then the one guy that calls out, "I'm a fan," was like,
Yeah,
"Look at my socks."
and it's like, dude,
you
it's
can't
like-
agree
it's
with
like-
him. You can't give him a thumbs
I'm like
up.
the little kid that's like, hey,
I
can
didn't
we
do
just be
that.
friends?
I no, he did.
Oh,
But it's go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
I thought. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, I thought Jason Van Camp or somebody put you up to it. Like, yeah, I thought somebody was like, "Oh yeah, go sit down
no,
there."
you
next
got to
to
remember,
these guys
I went
and
into
say
that
something
event
about
and
Iowa
I
State
knew
because that's where they're
no
going.
one.
So,
I knew no one.
oh, I didn't know that.
I take that back. I knew Ken Venera.
man.
That's the only person that I actually knew out of the whole
Ken's a
event
great guy.
from
I have,
some mentorship sessions that I had with him. But outside of that, I knew no one. Like, actually knew. I knew Matt Butler casually. Yeah.
I don't know if I saw Matt. I'm more of a face person.
So-
like if I see your face, I'm like,
I was glad that
I
you
don't-
ended up at the same facility that we were at, eating
Yeah,
and
it was-
drinking with us. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That you were a part of it. Come to find out,
Yeah.
Iowa State, everything like that. And more importantly, a supporter
Yeah,
of
man.
veterans and a veteran yourself. So
yeah.
we appreciate
it.
everything you've done
It's
and brought to the table.
It's about how do we pay it forward? How do we make it better than it was when we got here? That's my mission. That's what this is all about. It's about how do we create an ecosystem for others to flourish. That's it. It's a simple mission. And how do we create rich learnings for others to hear, voices to follow, and an ecosystem for them to be successful?